Okay, we'll move now to the consent agenda. These are expected to be routine and non-controversial. However, anybody in the room can take an item off for further discussion. Is there anyone who wishes to take item 1, 2, or 3 off?
I need to abstain on that.
Okay, we'll separate that out. Anybody else? Motion in the second. Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes on 5-0.
I'll move item 1, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second? Motion in the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 4-0-1. We're now actually in 10 seconds. We'll reach item 4, public comment. Just to try to figure out how many people in the room wish to speak under public comment, could I see the number of hands that intend to address the board? Okay, well, as posted, we have a 5 minutes per person and 15 minutes per topic. We'll extend the minutes per topic, obviously, to be able to accommodate everybody speaking. I would ask, if you could, to try to not be redundant and see whether we can move this in a way that allows us to keep within our agenda time, more or less. So we'll open it up for public comments at this point. I'm sorry, I believe the CAO has an announcement to make on that.
Yeah, this is for the information of the board and the clerk. Then on the July 15th agenda, the county administrator is scheduling a closed session. The topic is public employee discipline, dismissal, or release pursuant to Government Code 54-957.
Thank you. Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'm Jeff Davidson. I reside at 202 Ronald Reagan Court in Valley Springs. I'm here today on behalf of the Calaveras County Chamber of Commerce to give a statement that was endorsed by the full board. The Calaveras County Chamber of Commerce has serious concerns regarding the state of our economy and its future outlook for Calaveras County. We're not here today to pile on, but simply state our case to how we, local businesses, feel the actions of supervisors and the CDA's office to put our families, jobs, and investments in jeopardy. Over 2 years ago, this board started down a path that many chamber members and others told you would hamper an already declining residential commercial real estate market. As you should know, the decline of that market has affected all businesses. At the same time, the board had a choice to repair the few defects in our general plan or throw it out and create a new vision for our county. You chose to throw it out and start over. We have no idea when it will be finished, what it will cost. In fact, due to the economy we believe was created by the moratorium, the county may never be able to afford to complete the ambitious new general plan. The cost to landowners, businesses, county tax rolls, and other agencies may never be known. We believe the cost and the expense has been too great. There is an apparent lack of oversight between the supervisors and the CDA's office. We ask you today, who set the CDA's agenda to prioritize septic setback requirements, legal access issues, 30-year-old permits, and the latest blow to small business strict enforcement of the sign code. Individually, these may seem harmless, but together they give the impression of an anti-business, no-growth climate. We feel the top priority of the overworked CDA's office should be the process projects that encourage economic development and jobs of all time. The Chamber has serious concerns brought to us by our landowner and business owner membership that projects are not being crossed in a timely manner or in accordance with CEQA guidelines. We again ask, is this the board's will to delay development, or is it that of the CDA's office? We have questions as to whether we are hiring qualified planners. We want planners doing planning, and we want a clear path which has an end. Developers and landowners pay millions of dollars in excess interest and other costs of waiting and waiting. This money could have been used to open new businesses. chamber believes that the Board of Supervisors has a responsibility to support our local economy. The chaos caused by the lack of oversight will harm us for some time into the future. We recognize the full board has not yet had an opportunity to file an official response to the grand jury report. However, it is clear to our membership that there is an anti-business climate coming from county government. We hope the necessary changes in staff and leadership will occur to reverse this course and make Calaveras County business friendly. I have copies of this in the letter. Thank you for the opportunity to address the issue.
Thank you.
That's intended to make sure that people don't take it away.
By the way, this is our scientific tool for determining 5 minutes. It's actually 5 minutes and 12 seconds.
Good morning. I'm Mike Borean, spoken to you on numerous occasions. I represent the Builders Association of Calaveras County. I'm up here through all that I'm possibly doing this at my own risk. My name is clearly on the plans I submit to the building department. I have a clear fear of retaliation for the work I'm about to see. But like many people in this room, we're mad as hell. We're not going to take it anymore. Let's review recent history of the CDA. It's not necessarily chronological, but the points are valid. A couple of years ago, you guys created and filled the CDA director's job. Naturally, you hired a qualified candidate with years of experience in planning and or building, which was supported by a formal education in engineering, land use. How about public administration? How about a clean, terminal-free record of public service? I hate when that happens. Then, immediate, unilateral, unannounced changes occurred in the building department. New plan check companies were used. We lost the ability to request specific plan check companies. Some companies were absolutely horrible. They were unreachable. The CDA refused to represent your citizens' disputes with these companies. In January of 2007, we Builders Group came before you with our concerns.
If we could turn off all cell phones or at least put them on vibrate.
We came to you with a list of concerns, our list of grievances. We also brought solutions to each one of these. We offered you our assistance in solving these problems. We assembled a committee of experts, top-notch designers, builders, subcontractors in the county. You promised that you would be contacted. Never did. You released the preliminary and final JAS reports. Preliminary report was full of inflammatory, unsupported accusations that were to be addressed in the final report. The final report did not address any of the first accusations, but offer new inflammatory, unsupported accusations. We found one statement that was true in the JS report, that you field inspectors don't wear uniforms. Gotcha. Got us on that one. And yet, the JS report was waved as a banner, as a cause of the past and current problems of the building department, and as justification for your actions. You caused and allowed to this report the good, hardworking builders, subcontractors, designers, architects, engineers, and artisans of this county to be looked upon with suspicion by the public. Thank you very much for that. You then suspended and fired the previous building official. Such a good job in this action that legal action followed and the county had to make a financial statement. You then suspended number 2 man in the building department. Once again, nice job, financial settlement. Guess what now, folks? We now have no building official. Then, the subject of the crisis. Red alert, lights flashing. 2,000 failing septic systems. Very nice, very false. But it did stop many folks from investing in our county. It did put your people out of work. The problem was solved or how do we fix this? The problem is solved by changing nothing, other than the septic systems were taken out of the CDA's authority and put it into public health. Then we had the building setback crisis. Red alert! Your planner stated in an open meeting that septic systems were temporary, never permanent. Great way to get confidence from the public. Septic systems should be subject to the same setback rules as above ground buildings. This would, if implemented, make many parcels unbuildable and worthless. Again, nice job calling it a nervous public. Guess how that problem is resolved? Very quietly, we resumed the rules of the old guard. Now there's a legal access issue. Double red alert. Kind of my theme by now, folks. Sweeping, short-sighted rules were implemented. Many parcels would become unbuildable and naturally worthless. Building permits for repairs on buildings where we couldn't prove legal access would not be allowed. I'm pretty sure the public was feeling much better at this point, don't you? It's still not resolved at this point, is it? The last man standing in the building department, Jeff White, good man by the way, worked his butt off, became qualified to serve as a building official. In fact, he was named as interim building official. That was a good move, we thought. It didn't last. He was pigeonholed to checking fire prevention plans. Then we hired the outside consultant, Valley Cooper, considerable cost. This is an all-star team. We got incredible qualifications. The results of their tenure, other than training the plan checkers, waiting for an answer on that. And I understand they're out. We no longer have a relationship with them. I hope that the cost of Valley Cooper's tenure here, we have a report on their work, their findings, and their recommendations. With the exit of Valley Cooper, you do not have an engineer on staff. It makes it kind of hard to check an engineer's set of plans and specifications. Jeff White is once again an interim building official. Personally, I'm pretty happy about that. Like I said, he's a good man. Another red alert, driveway slope issue. Kind of hard to say red alert, but
By the way, your 5 minutes is well over. If you might be able to sum up.
I'll do my best.
You could have my 5 minutes.
I'll try to speak faster. I get confused doing that. Driveway slope issue. Current code was swept aside even though it was enacted properly and worked for over 10 years. Again, threats that some parcels would be unbuildable or even be able to rebuild a burnt down house were questions raised on that. The public, I'm sure, is going to be very confident. Currently, this issue is in murky waters, no clear answers for current or potential property owners. Here's a new one. Existing buildings that were never final, or that we don't have a record of a final inspection. Oh my God. 30% of our buildings are never final. That number's been battered about in public. Kind of like the 2000 Fitting Sector Service. Currently, if your owners can't prove that a 30-year-old building was final 6 owners ago, they have to pay for a new permit. I think the public now is seeking stress relief therapy. Sign issue. All of a sudden, mom and pop businesses have these illegal signs. Oh my God. Now the nuclear option. Grand jury report. Supports and substantiates all that we've been telling you over the last 2 years and more. One would think that the board of supervisors would take this report seriously, closely examine each and every claim made by the grand jury in an unbiased, concerned manner with a clear sense of urgency. You made a direct attack on the grand jury, possible Brown Act violations. Spin machine is on overdrive. You guys are killing us. The wheels have fallen off. You guys are protecting bureaucracy, not the people of the county. As I said at the start, we are mad as hell. We're not going to take it anymore. And to quote Mr. Williams, you take inaction at your own peril. You take inaction at our peril. Thank you.
noise ordinance in effect. She also suggested that because vacation rentals were not specifically named as a use in the R1 issues, that it was illegal and they could put it into the ordinance and the county would then permit each one. Nowhere is it stated as an illegal use. Christy Bourdian brought to my attention that the California Civil Code 3479 through 3485 states a public nuisance can be abated by any public body or officer authorized by law. There was no need to go any further with this vacation rental debacle. I mean, it's cost hundreds of hours of hundreds of people to do all this. And what is it going to cost the county to implement something like this? I think it's a lack of experience that this code was overlooked and ignored. And I request that you withdraw any further action on vacation rentals.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning. My name is Joyce Teckel. I'm here today representing the MyDaughterSprings.com organization. We're turning in a baseline report that was recently turned in to us. This is for your information. I'm going to read this brief press release. On June 26th, Colleen Heiner, a graduate student intern for the University of California, Davis, presented her Valley Springs Community Planning Baseline Report to area residents at a meeting of the Greater Valley Springs Advisory Group, GVSAG. The report is the culmination of 6 months of research and concludes if the county and the community remain committed to the inclusive and democratic processes that have occurred thus far, both should emerge better off from the project of community planning in Valley Springs. The report may be accessed at www.myvalleysprings.com. Heiner's work was funded through the UC Davis California Communities Program, and she did her community-based research at the invitation of myvalleysprings.com. Heiner worked under the supervision of the local UC Agricultural Extension Office. Her report describes the transition from initial community efforts to update the existing community plan in Valley Springs to instead crafting a broadly based vision in response to county government encouragement. The report documents the call to action from myvalleysprings.com, which resulted in the creation of the Greater Valley Springs Advisory Group and the crafting of a vision for the future of Valley Springs. The vision will provide the basis for community-specific language to be included in the new Calaveras County General Plan. The report also documents that GVSAG has made a, quote, concerted and continued effort to be inclusive and to avoid the impression that personal interests are driving the process. Although GVSAG is not officially sanctioned by the county, Heiner notes, they do have the legitimacy and weight of countless hours of outreach and public discussions around issues of local import, which the report asserts is insight the county is happy to discover, even though the timeline and proposed structure for the county-initiated community plan is still undetermined. MyValleySprings.com is very pleased with Colleen Heiner's work. Her report provides excellent documentation of the ongoing citizen effort in Valley Springs to plan a better community. However, there was some disappointment because the report is not the document MyValleySprings.com originally anticipated. When we first talked about working with an intern, it was to compile a baseline data report. Unfortunately, Colleen was unable to access the information necessary to report on baseline data, and so had to shift her focus. As the report itself states, the original intent of the baseline report included the compilation of data specific to Valley Springs, such as community plan, land use and zoning documents and maps, seeking information and about developed land, the community plan study area, water sewer availability, level of service for roads and highways, planned road projects, current and future land developments, and so on. The purpose of this work was to also identify data gaps. Unfortunately, the scope of the work changed as it became clear that much of this data, while theoretically available, was either outdated, difficult to access, or both. Direct attempts to collect public information, including developed and approved for development land and parcels transitioning out of the Williamson Act status, failed due to incomplete county records and an apparent lack of attention to the request for information. Heiner concluded it is clear data collection and compilation by the county and other entities should be a high priority. MyValleySprings.com is in the process of making an official public record request to obtain current information on developed and approved for development parcels in the Greater Valley Springs study area. Heiner's report offers several recommendations: increase and clarify communication between the county and the community, foster a unified sense of community in the Valley Springs area, maintain and improve the quality of life of current residents concurrently with planning for a pleasant and viable future, provide for the production and dissemination of adequate up-to-date planning information, include at minimum community-specific language for Valley Springs in the general plan to demonstrate county valuation of community planning efforts, and encourage inclusive community participation by continuing existing and developing new outreach strategies. The Valley Springs Community Baseline Report fulfilled its purpose, which was to document current progress on community planning in Valley Springs, while identifying productive pathways for expressing community voices and preferences within the county's planning processes. MyValleySprings.com wishes to thank the University of California, Davis and their California Communities Program, faculty sponsor Dave Campbell, Department of Human and Community Development, Ken Churches, Director, Calaveras County Cooperative Extension, and of course, Connie Heiner. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to speak next?
The two that just came in, we have 2 seats right up here in front.
Right over here. There are actually 2 other seats if there's anybody else who would like to come forward before we begin next. Anybody else want to sit in these 2 seats?
Well, Christy, just because you're talking, I'm taking your shoes.
Yeah, apologies. All right. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Christy Bordian, and I have my statement addresses a couple different issues regarding the Community Development Director. I'm appalled that this Board of Supervisors has shown such disregard for the taxpayers of Calaveras County by not only hiring a Community Development Director with absolutely no experience in either building or planning, but you've allowed her to drive the department into the ground. Now, 3 of you supervisors honestly expect us to believe that Ms. Marino is the target of a vast conspiracy to discredit her. Do you really expect us to believe that 16 Calaveras County grand jurors, randomly selected from all areas of the county and all walks of life, who most likely didn't know each other until their grand jury selection, and 2 long-serving supervisors with opposing political views who have not often agreed on a variety of different issues, the former building department head, former CAO, and many former government employees, and all kinds of developers, builders, engineers, and other professionals who worked with all different kinds of city and government planning and building agencies throughout California and beyond. So they do have experience dealing with departments such as this. Dozens of realtors who sit before you who have worked with many other agencies in the course of their business. A distinguished, duly elected judge who oversees the grand jury. More than a dozen employees, 21 Amador County grand jurors randomly selected from all areas of that county, a reputable consulting firm, and hundreds of ordinary citizens who are angry and upset that Ms. Marino, who knows nothing about land use, threatens their homes and investments with her harebrained decisions, are all dead wrong, but the 3 of you are right. Okay, why? Why should we believe that? It's been reported that Supervisor Malinsky claims that the grand jury didn't see everything. Is that the case?
I don't know what's been reported, actually. I've been out of town for the last week.
Ask it again.
I
record that were clearly different than the findings.
Okay, if that's the case, and you have pertinent information about an ongoing grand jury investigation and you withheld it, that's a crime on your part, not a failure on the part of the grand jury. If you feel that the grand jury is so feeble-minded that they could be easily misled, what else are they wrong about? If our community development director is so wonderful and competent, then perhaps our jail is a palace as well. And there really is a lovely new, fully completed fire station in Burson, and you'll be toasting the completion of the general plan update with glasses full of water from the middle fork of the McCallum because it doesn't have any E. coli in it whatsoever. Speaking of the general plan, the community development director should really be working on updating that. I'm sure that you guys all remember the general plan update. In 2006, she put a moratorium on development until that update was completed. Unfortunately, with no planning knowledge or expertise, Marino can't work on that. So she busies herself micromanaging the citizens of our county. She wants to require a permit to allow you to rent out your home. Zoning never stipulates occupancy, and Calaveras County zoning codes are no exception. The lack of an option listed under the zoning code does not mean it's prohibited. Supervisors, Ms. Marino, and County Council, shame on you for not reading your own zoning codes. Calaveras County zoning ordinance for R1 doesn't say you can rent your home, but it doesn't say you cannot. I'll grant you the failure to mention it could be construed either way by an uneducated reader. You must review the entire zoning code to get context. Look at R2, duplex zoning. Long or short-term residential rental is not one of the permitted uses of a duplex either. Oh my goodness, does that mean each owner has to occupy both sides of a duplex? Look at R3, same thing. Does each owner have to occupy all 4 units in a fourplex? Because for R3, residential rentals are not one of the permitted uses. Those of you with apartment buildings, newsflash, you can't rent them out. You have to live in every single unit. Rural residential, same thing. Every single zoning use description does not specifically permit residential rentals, either short or long term. Who can occupy is only mentioned in one small area in relation to accessory dwelling permits. At least one planning expert has told me that even this requirement that the owner occupy the main residence may be a violation of state law, since one of the accessory dwelling goals is to provide affordable housing and housing for relatives unable to live independently. Don't tenants have those needs as well as owners of real estate? I'm going to let you in on a little secret that people with real planning expertise all know. Zoning stipulates how you can use the land, not who can use it. If it is zoned R1, then you can build a single-family residence, aka house. Anyone can live in that single-family residence as long as they are using it as a house. They can eat, sleep, watch TV, barbecue, shower, anything that people do in houses. They cannot put gas pumps in their front yard or a McDonald's drive-thru in the garage, but they can use it as a house. Zoning codes do not tell us who can live in that house. Anyone can live there. Short people, tall people, owners, renters, couch surfers, people who vacation, people who work, black people, white people, pretty people, ugly people. I know my time's up. I'll finish. Government can limit density. They can limit building size, etc., but they cannot stipulate what people can live in houses or neighborhoods ever. Why is Marino trying to create another needless bureaucracy when she has a general plan to update? I think the grand jury discovered the reason. She doesn't know how. She doesn't have the building experience or the planning experience to be able to do the job of the community development director. You guys need to stop this. You need to get somebody in there who can do the job so that everyone in this county can quit jumping through these ridiculous hoops. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to speak next?
Good morning. My name is Robert Kern. I live at 3493 Main Street, Vallecito. I am requesting that the board not approve any of the CDA recommendations regarding revisions to Chapter 1506, the floodplain prevention ordinance.
Sir, I believe that's on the agenda and will be coming up after the public.
I can't bring that up here. Any public comment?
Actually, public comment is meant for things that are not on the agenda.
Oh.
I'll check with the board and see. I know there's going to be a lot of speaking that you're here at this time, so if it's all right with the board, I'd make an exception to this rule and allow this out of order. Is there any objection from the county council? All right. Board. Go ahead.
Proceed. Thank you. Although I sympathize with the problems being experienced by the residents of the Cosgrove Creek and understand the county's wish to establish new regulations to avoid these problems, the CDA proposals will have a significant impact on existing structures in all areas of the county, including my home, which is over 110 years old and never been flooded. I request that the board allow time for additional public input on this matter before any of the recommendations be voted upon by the board. These recommendations may cause serious negative financial impact on existing structures within your districts, and the public should be better informed before you vote on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I guess we set the precedent, but again, this is highly unusual. The reason I'm making this exception is because there's so many people who can speak under public comment, and I know that might take a long time to get to your agenda item. So.
Darcy, wouldn't you want to discuss it when we discuss this, so we could then kind of ask questions?
There's no chance for colloquy in public comment. So maybe I can help out a little bit here. When we get to that item, if I have support on the board, I'm going to make a recommendation for at least a 2-week continuance so we can get the floodplain maps and about CO. So if there's support on the board for that, then I don't think there's a need to provide a lot of comment on that issue, because we'll continue it, and I think we need to get the maps, and maybe I can get planning up and we can also maybe contact the folks there or something. We can have a bit of a discussion as to what's in the floodplain and what's out, and what are the consequences of the proposed ordinance. I have support for it.
We'll learn what support we have at the time the agenda item comes up, but I believe that that suggestion will be well received by at least one of the supervisors.
Good morning. My name is Mike McAtee, and I've been a property owner in Calaveras County for about 30 years now. Had a number of things that I wanted to say this morning, but fortunately they've been mostly covered by previous speakers, so I'll be brief. Calaveras County is in the midst of a deep recession. This recession, contrary to board comments, has not been caused by the mortgage mess that is hurting much of the rest of the country. It has been caused by the direct activities of the Board of Supervisors and Stephanie Marino. Many, if not most of the people in this room, over the last 2 years, have tried to contact the board and to let them know what was going on, to let them know that Ms. Marino was not qualified and that she was incompetent in her job performance. All of this has been a stonewall. Now the grand jury has come out with a report that details much of what these people have been trying to tell the board. And reportedly, the board says that the grand jury didn't understand what it was doing and that its report was flawed. If that is the case, if they do not believe that the grand jury's report was accurate, then it's time for the district attorney to contact the state attorney general's office and have the attorney general bring in a task force and do a completely thorough investigation of this county's operations. Thank you.
morning, I'm Bill Smith. I'm here to speak on a subject near and dear to my heart. This is the first meeting after the 4th of July, and we escaped any large fires this year due to fireworks, but we did have several starts due to fireworks, and this is the time of year that the discussion should start about banning fireworks throughout this county, just as Amador County does and Colony County does. So I'd just like for you guys to get this on your horizon. I know those agencies, groups that raise money through the sale of fireworks. I'd be more than happy to make a contribution to their whatever good works they do, just to keep them from selling fireworks at them. Your phone number, Bill? 754-3030.
There was some talk, you presented this a while ago to us, and there was some talk about the idea that the Fire Chiefs Association might be able to discuss this and get back to the board and make recommendations. Do you think at this point it makes sense for us to have a joint chiefs and board study session on the topic?
Again, the Fire Chiefs Association is a member of the executive part of the fire service. There are 10 fire districts in the county, 2 of which have banned fireworks within their boundaries. We'd like to see it complete throughout the county. Again, just as Amador and Colony counties too. It's something that, rather than rely on other boards to 5 board members each to come up with their own, maybe it's not the same wording ordinance. We were in Central Fire, we plagiarized Deb's past, so at least our ordinances match fairly closely, but we just think this is a matter for the board to do, and I think there's enough community support to encourage you to ban fireworks throughout the county. And like I say, those organizations that raise money, I'm sure people are passionate enough about it. I'd rather not see a fire cause any damage or loss of life through that action. So let's figure out some way we can help these groups to raise the money that they do their good work with besides selling fireworks. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Terry Baker, and I'm here again to address an ongoing problem that doesn't seem to ever get resolved out in Railroad Flat about birds and roosters and chickens invading our neighborhood and subdivision. We moved up here, for some peace and quiet, and every time we go to a town hall meeting, that's what we all want, peace and quiet. We don't want. And we also thought we were under the impression that we had a say in what moved in next door to us. We don't want a Walmart to move in next door to us. And we don't want a commercial chicken farm with hundreds of roosters moving in next door to us. And if I seem like I haven't slept in a while, it's because it's been years that I've got a halfway decent night's sleep. And I'm just going to read something because I can't focus very well when you're sleep deprived. So, I'm here on behalf of our subdivision in Railroad Flat. Some of them are here today. Some of them won't make it till next week. This has been, in Railroad Flat, that our neighborhood has been taken over by a neighbor, David and Carolyn Redmond, at 706 Black Oak Drive, that now have over 100 roosters, chickens, birds, etc. right outside of our window. Now, Redmond, they've been cited twice for animal nuisance. And the first time was in April of '07. We went to court. The people took them to court. Judge Mooney was a judge. He ruled that the birds were a nuisance $150 and told the Redmonds that they had to quiet the birds down, or the second fine would be about $800. The third one would be about $1,600. The Redmonds completely disregarded Judge Monique's ruling and his advice. Now they doubled the amount of birds, and they doubled the amount of noise. Now, the Redmonds were cited a second time in December of '07, and at this time they had 40 roosters, chickens, and birds. And we went to court in May, and even with a prior guilty ruling from Judge Mouini, they asked for, and the complete non-compliance of Judge Mouini, they asked for an out-of-town judge because they didn't feel that Judge Mouini was fair. So we got an out-of-town judge, and he, by this time when we went to court, they had about 100 birds, okay? So this, we're talking 20 birds they got cited, 40 birds they got cited. By the time we went to court on the second one, they had over 100 birds. Well, the judge found them not guilty at that point. See, 100 birds isn't no nuisance, well, 20 is. And he gave them no fine. And now they have over 100 roosters. And now since they've got that ruling, they're out building bird condos in their backyard, okay? Because in that, nobody's doing anything, and if you do nothing, silence means consent. And they believe that they have every right to go from 100 roosters to 200 to 3. I don't know. Like, we're asking for some help here. Now, my question is, one of my questions is, what happened to the first ruling from Judge Mouini when they've already been warned, they've been fined? What happens to that? And now they have 100 birds and nobody's still going to do nothing. And so, my question is to the county council, because I hear they might have made some decision on what they're going to do about the birds. And I would kind of like to hear what they might have in mind. So I just completely, before you do that, I would like to mention that within the last year, I've had to go to the doctor and get medication so I can sleep at night. Okay. This is Lunesta. I'm on Lunesta to go to sleep. I have Valium to calm me down. And I also have Xanax. Do you have my time going? I didn't hear. I brought my own timer.
Okay.
I'm just asking for some help here. And so anyway, I have Xanax that I have to take to come and deal with you people. Common sense here, okay? Now, we're not asking for a lot. We're asking for, I'll hurry it up. I know my time is up. We're asking, this is a nuisance animal law, and it says that if any animal disturbs other people, they're illegal. I'm asking you, why are you letting the inmates run the asylum? And what are you going to do? What are you going to do for the people who have to live next to these people? And I'll wait for my answer.
Well, what I would suggest is that after this meeting, or maybe at this point, that the two of you could need to go over what there's two different court rulings that contradict. It does give county staff some difficulty in figuring out what the likelihood of success in the next round would be, but we're also working on noise nuisance ordinance, which is supposed to take care of it. You can get staff support on that, as well as the county council's advice to staff and what has come out in the last week. And I would suggest that we have a specific appointment. I don't think it is complicated enough to take some time in explanation.
Well, okay, in closing, I would like to say, just give my thanks for nothing. Very much, who were supposed to be helping us, who got the perpetrators the ammunition to use against the county. And she used against us when she was supposed to be helping us. She got them people that came in and told the county that they were wrong.
Thank you. Could you please make... Mr. Mayor, could you please make an appointment with the county council?
I think I know what you're going to tell me. I've already heard it, Mr. Lewin. They want me to go take them to court, okay? Since you brought that up, I got He's giving me his 5 minutes, and I have my own timer.
You're asking you to make an appointment so that you can get a detailed response from the county council to the legal situation.
And I would like to respond to that if I could.
But you haven't had it yet.
I would like to respond to that, what you just said. I have been told that the county council wants us to take them to court because you guys are going to do nothing, and we took them to court and won. You guys got involved and lost this case for us, and now you're saying, here, Mr. Baker, it's up to you. Thank you very much. That's all my time. I still got time? What?
Do you like rooster soup?
I don't mind roosters as long as I get some sleep.
I'm going to try to bring this.
Rooster stew? That's what needs to be done.
Another live day calendar. Good morning, my name is Dave Haley, Vice President and Division Manager of Castle & Cook. It has not been my practice personally or our company's practice to openly complain in public, but we are so frustrated that we are doing so at this time. I'm speaking of 45 years of my personal experience in the development of real estate in Calaveras and California, more specifically the last 10 years in Calaveras. The first 8 years of that 10 years was very constructive in our community development efforts and land use planning, but the last 2 years have been a complete gridlock. We're very frustrated. We have asked the community development director for meetings on things that we think are serious to the county. Example, formatting of the zoning code that she's proposing to do. She states to us that that's non-negotiable and she will not have a meeting on it. But we've been continually trying to do that and we've been stalling that. We've been asked, so we asked the development director several times to speak to other agencies and other development or other department heads within the county. We were told specifically by the director that we cannot do that without her presence. I think that's very unfortunate for good economic development and quality land use planning. Again, we are very frustrated. I could name many more issues, and I've been trying to think of a positive that I could offer, and I cannot. Our community plan in Copperopolis is a complete stall. I've been to many meetings where citizens have asked certain things to be inserted, nothing happens. Again, we are very, very frustrated, and our county deserves the quality of life that it is capable of, and good economic development and quality land use planning. I have no confidence in the community development director at this time. Thank you.
My name's Mark Burton. I'm a building contractor from Copperopolis. First of all, maybe you can get a little relief on those chicken coops. Did they have a final permit? I'm not going to go through all the CEA stuff that's been said plenty of times here already, but my concern is the consistent string of actions that, intended or not, that destroy the incentive to risk development in Calaveras County.
Since I've been here, we've had controversy over the general plan, septic setback, legal access, driveway slope, and final inspection. Current homeowners are held responsible for the possibilities of their homes didn't receive the final inspection. In many cases, decades ago, and by some others, they can't even repair the bathroom without a permit if they need to. Perhaps the Board of Supervisors hasn't considered the unintended consequences of all this, but I can tell you that as a builder, many residents don't intend to pull a permit. They're afraid that something will be dug up from the past or some new rule is going to be imposed that will cost them a lot of time and money or jeopardize their ability to improve their home. The county is going to lose out on revenue and more work, not less, is going to be performed without a permit. The grand jury report shows there's just as much turmoil within the CDA as without due to a hostile work environment. I don't believe this is a scenario the Board of Supervisors intended to create inside or outside the CDA, but it's what's there, and it's what needs to be fixed.
Good morning, I'm Betsy Duncan, I'm from COP office. I'm not going to address the CDA issues specifically. I think there's been plenty of that, but I do have a very, very deep concern with how Mr. Lewinsky, Mr. Claudino handled the grand jury report. I don't, excuse me, I'm a little worse this morning. I don't think you can separate yourself from your position as a supervisor, because some of the information you had access to, you only had access to as a supervisor. You got the grand jury report early. I can't do that. You were able to call a meeting with the employee and the CAO. I can't do that. You were able to access various reports and personnel documents. I can't do that. You were also able to call a meeting with the newspaper immediately and get one. I can't do that. So to go to those efforts, speak to the newspaper, and say you're doing it on your own behalf, you can't, because you would have never had that information if you hadn't been a supervisor. Therefore, the board should have collectively done what you did. They should have come to a consensus, whether it was 3-2 opposed or 3-2 for, and then they should have taken a position where the CDA was concerned. It was highly inappropriate and detrimental to the democratic process for the two of you to take it upon yourselves to speak to that report. So I hope that you will consider that. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to address the board on matters not on the agenda?
I hadn't intended to, but the last speaker basically addressed part of what I want to address, and that is process and procedure. People have been telling you for 2 years what's going on in the CDA, but 3 of you have preferred to believe and support the lies of one person and assume everybody else is the one lying. Not just 20 staff people, but the entire public. And I don't know why you did that. And I think you made a big mistake doing that. And I think you made a big mistake deciding what you thought the grand jury report says and whether it's accurate or not. I'm tired of you cherry-picking the information that you feed to me as a member of the public. Get it all out there. You have to now. If you took a stack of files over to the enterprise, that's public information. You released the investigative report on the employees. It is not true, as you said, that there's no merit to their claims. You see those letters. I've seen some of them. I have people calling me every 2 weeks complaining about their treatment at the hands of the CDA director, who just very defiantly tells them, I can do anything I want. Now, if you want to contend that that is not true, let's get a judicial proceeding underway. Let's get an attorney general investigation underway and put people on the stand, including all three of you. That is the only
Next speaker.
My name is Gina Guido, and my comment is for Tom Cameron and Lee Calloway, the rest of you for your recent years. I would like to commend you for trying so hard to do what's right for our county, even though you've been thwarted time after time. I commend you, and I applaud you for your efforts.
Joe Kelly, just a little bit of an update. The Illegal Access Committee meeting for today that was supposed to take place was canceled at 5:02 yesterday evening. This meeting was set on, I believe, the 23rd of last month. The people that attended that meeting were there. They asked for materials to be provided. And we expected that the meeting would have been noticed. There was no noticing of the meeting, so apparently the whole thing is a little incredulous to me, because I had asked, is the meeting still on for Tuesday? And I was told yes last Thursday night. And I also asked about the information. We were told we would get it. There was no noticing of getting it. So the Illegal Access Committee is now 2 weeks behind on the amount of time that you folks allowed us to have until the December deadline. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Would anybody else wish to address the board on matters not on the agenda? Going once? All right.
Mr. Chair, I would like to get a few comments.
Go ahead.
I'd be happy to do it by 5 minute rule. First off, I would like to thank the grand jury. I think they did a very good job. I think they're a very courageous group. It's very hard to speak truth to power. It's very hard to address even one city board member, let alone 2 city board members, let alone 3 city board members, and 3 city board members to the power of this county. So to have a grand jury that's made up of lay people, probably if it's a cross section of the county, probably 60% of those citizens on the grand jury, plus or minus, reside in the 3 supervisors' districts, and probably, since the 3 are sitting up here, they won their elections, probably a majority of those voted for the 3 supervisors. So I think it was a very courageous effort on the part of the grand jury to take the testimony and to do the investigation and to issue their report. I too am very concerned about the reaction of certain board members to the release of the grand jury report. And I guess that to a significant extent has prompted my comments this morning. Let me say I am very I'm critical of the grand jury, but I am disappointed on 3 elements of the grand jury report. I view the report as basically half the report when it comes to the community development agency, because it did not address board members. And maybe the simple reality is that was just too hot a political issue. Let me say that I drafted, assigned, and I delivered complaint to the grand jury, suspect initiated this investigation. When I spoke to the grand jury, both initially and then they asked me in later toward the end of their investigation, I pressed very hard that they obtain some professional investigators and not just let it be a layman or a woman investigation. I was very disappointed, frankly, and I don't say this as criticism, I'll just say disappointed, that they did not obtain professional investigators and professional help in the investigation. I think maybe if they had, we would probably have a more thorough report than what's before us, which in my opinion is damning enough. The third disappointment was when I delivered my complaint. And this was back, I think, in the latter part of June, it's almost a year ago, probably is a year ago. I very much said to them that they needed to expedite the report, and I was hoping they would do an interim report just as they did on the jail. And I stated to them at the time that I thought they should have a report, they should give it a high priority, and they should have the report completed by January 1st as an objective, and certainly by March 1st as a drop dead date, so it would be subject to dissemination and discussion in the primary election. They chose not to do that, and issued it when they did, which obviously is after the primary election. Steve, I think, mentioned just briefly, and I've had some other comments as well, Tom Tryon is sort of organizing this group that turned out today. Let me say, I did not organize this group that turned out today. Most of the people here, quite frankly, there's probably maybe 20% I even know. A lot of people have approached me over the last 3 months and said, geez, we want to talk to the board. We just have to come in and have to do something. We need to talk to the board. And I said, no, don't do it. I said, you have to wait for the grand jury. And they said, well, Tom, how do you know what's in it? I said, I don't know what's in it. I can't believe the grand jury report could look at the department and this is something that isn't sort of non-complimentary. And I said, you know, we have to have an objective third-party observation of what's going on. If you show up down here and you're a user, and some users have, it will basically be, well, you were the users, you don't want to play by the new rules, you wish Ray Waller was back, and I'll say to Dana from the Stockton Record, I was very disappointed in the Stockton Record report on last week's board action, where basically the Stockton Record turned it into a Ray Waller issue. And I told people that talked to me that that's what happened. It would get turned into a, we don't want to play by the rules, we're complaining, wish Ray Waller was back, etc. So I said you have to wait until we get an objective third-party report. And I said the other issue you'll have is I will stick up for you. There will be a minority position on my part, and it will come out that, you know, Tom is embittered, Tom's out of power. It's the old versus the new. We have a new vision. The old doesn't want to play by the new rules, etc. And quite frankly, that was reflected in the Enterprise article, which you had to get online because the last sentence in the Enterprise article was cut off. But it was basically old versus new. I don't think this is an old versus new. I think this is a competent versus incompetent issue. I work, and I try very hard to work within the system. I guess the old saying is, well, the feather that broke the camel's back. In this instance, it was the ton of bricks that broke the camel's back. And that ton of bricks was the firing of Tom Mitchell, the CAO. At the time, Tom Mitchell did not resign. It was a forced resignation. It was a firing, and it never came out of the board of supervisors. Marie and I were never aware, other than Tom came and told us afterwards, of what had happened. I think that, I don't know how you can have a more flagrant violation of the Brown Act than the firing of the CAO without going to the board of supervisors. So that was the ton of bricks for me that said I cannot work in this system anymore. And I realized I could not speak out individually. So I did the only thing that was available, that I felt was available to me, and that was go to the grand jury. I also went to the district attorney and said, and I took an article from Sacramento, it was a school board article, where the district attorney, I think it was Sacramento area, the district attorney had filed a Brown Act complaint, which I understand is a misdemeanor, so it is a legal issue, not a civil issue, against, I think, some board members down there on the school board about, I think, the termination of a district superintendent or principal or something. And the district attorney did not win that case, but I took that to the district attorney and said, this is something that warrants an investigation by your department. And I plugged in for about 3 weeks and then had a response from our district attorney saying that he had spoken to his staff and did not feel it rose to a level for his office to get involved. So I was disappointed with that. So, you know, I guess in my closing comments, what I'm going to do to relieve a huge burden off my shoulders, I'm going to release a complaint I filed with the grand jury. And I wish to make 2 points on this. The first is my closing comment. And I state the undersigned were not direct participants in the potential transgressions listed above. These potential, I understand potential, and I wish to say I was obviously not there. It wouldn't have happened if I'd been there. Obviously, the whole point of this is I wasn't there. The undersigned were not direct participants in the potential transactions listed above. These potential transactions rise to a high enough significance to warrant investigation by the grand jury. And I wish to emphasize that and emphasize that I do not have first-hand knowledge of this. I was certainly not included. I'd also thought about, I think there's 7 issues I raised in here. I thought about eliminating issue 7 because that issue deals with an old issue that has been totally resolved. It was a public works issue, probably most of you read about it. It was a lot of headlines issue. But I didn't leave it out because I didn't want to say, I want to give you what I delivered to the grand jury. And I didn't want to say, well, I've eliminated issue 7, and then everybody wondering what the hell was issue 7. So I thought, in the interest of full disclosure, I would just give the original report. I have no interest in talking about issue 7. It's totally resolved to the satisfaction of all parties. I hope nobody focuses, in my opinion, on issue 7. I intend to have no comments on issue 7. So I will give this to the clerk and ask her to keep a copy and put the rest up on for you.
Maria, you have requested 3 minutes.
Thank you, John.
Okay, we're going to resume the meeting now. Supervisor Callaway requested a couple of minutes.
I don't think there's a board member out here who has not received a phone call or an email regarding the Under the penal Penal Code of the State of California gives the criteria for a grand jury report. This board collectively has 90 days to submit our response to the grand jury. We can respond sooner. The Community Development Agency, which is one of the people asked to respond, the Chief Administrative Officer, and I believe one other, have 60 days to respond to the grand jury. It's an emotionally charged issue, and I think we've all heard collectively as a board many comments today and many comments outside the boardroom. The grand jury does not have to release our comments to the public, though I would hope that this board would, until next year, I would hope this board would ask them to release the comments prior to their final report. I ask that all of you give respect to the process, including board supervisors, county staff, and the public, for the protocol that we have to follow regarding reporting out to anything that's in the grand jury report. We need to follow the due process out of respect for the work of the grand jury, out of fairness to the Community Development Agency, and for especially what we owe the public. And so I would hope you would give that courtesy to the board to let the process follow. The response to the grand jury comes from the board, not from any individual board member. We might or might not agree collectively on what the response is. The Penal Code tells you how we have to respond. It's very clear, very straightforward. We do it sort of every year for the jail, every year for animal services, and occasionally we have something more controversial like we do community development. So I ask that you give respect to the process, the grand jury, community development, the board of supervisors, and to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Russ?
It's not usual for us to make comments after this, things that are not on the agenda, but some issues have been brought up that I would like an opportunity to kind of weigh in on. The grand jury report, as Marita has said, it charges us with the responsibility to reply. I've been spending a good many hours over the weekend looking at various blogs and comments, which incidentally it sort of rankles me that people can say some pretty preposterous things about me particularly and not sign their name to it, accusing me of being involved in this hiring process, which I would like to clarify that I was not. The CDA director was hired a full 6 months before I got on this board. And I want to make it clear that I have a great deal of respect for our chairman. I think that he was faced with the unfortunate circumstance of he had to be on a plane at midnight on Tuesday to be gone for a week. There was a little laughter associated with the fact that he said he was gone, but I think he's entitled to a week off once in a while. But there was no, the stuff that he delivered to the newspapers was not his work. It was just merely a collection of some things that had been put together to not refute, but to offer up some evidence that there might have been documents that the grand jury could have overlooked. I don't think that it's completely justifiable for people to say, all right, Steve, that was you shouldn't have done that. I think that it was a responsible thing to do. And just in my final comment would be to kind of address Supervisor Tryon's admonition of 3 particular board members. I would suggest to Supervisor Tryon that he could be a lot more successful with me if he would cease the name calling and the kind of unruly behavior that he occasionally puts forth in these chambers. I really think that we collectively could do a better job if we, like Rodney King said, if we could all just get along. But another thing an observation that I would like to make as finishing my first 18 months as a board member is that this is a difficult system to work in. We come together once a week and we have meetings, and we seldom have an opportunity to really fully get our arms around a particular problem, to give it the amount of attention that it needs. We are specifically precluded from working together in the interim. In other words, we can't get together on a Wednesday to work through a problem that we might encounter on any given Tuesday. I have observed that it's pretty darn tough to know that there might be a problem that you would like to work out to, and I'm not completely indifferent or unaware of some of the problems that developers are having, applicants getting projects approved. We certainly need to work on expediting the methods and the procedures. So anyway, I just wish that Ralph and Brown had been a little bit more lenient in his rules, but whether we could work together on committees in between these board meetings. I guess on balance it's necessary, but I would submit to you that it does present some constraints and some inability to get things done, and that frustrates me when I can't get things done. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Well, I probably ought to say something just to be farther. I don't have a lot to say, folks, but like so many other people, I have something to say anyway. I really appreciate Rita's comments about protocol and following the system that you set up for us. It's worked pretty well so far. And I appreciate Russ's comments. I actually appreciate Tom's comments too. He's right in his statement that the grand jury, a group of people who work very hard to produce this report. And obviously, that report and some responses to it evoke a lot of emotion. I personally have been attacked for quite some time now with regard to that, and with regard to statements made by people, inaccurate statements, admittedly by them, lies about my personal life, which is very disappointing to me. But there's nothing I can do about that, folks. I want to say that anybody that knows me would know that the allegations of conspiracy, lies, and manipulation are not true. For those of you that don't know me, I would suggest that people who make those allegations are participating in the old behavior of measuring other people with their own yardstick. In other words, maybe that's what they would do in my situation. It's certainly not what I do. So I would ask people to be objective about this. My biggest single disappointment is that the truth in that is often is overshadowed by the emotion and selfishness of some people. It works people into an emotional frenzy, which sometimes leaves logic behind. And I was suggested here today by someone to have, like, for instance, an Attorney General's investigation. Boy, would I welcome that. That would be great. Supervisor Trine was also correct, in my opinion, when he suggested that perhaps the grand jury, when they do an investigation, should have some assistance from professional investigators. So maybe they would know better what questions to ask of who, where to look for information. There's been a lot of discussion today and previously about people performing assignments or being employed in places
exception, I'm going to say the well-meaning people of the grand jury, this one or past, maybe have the intelligence, the will, the energy, and the time to perform their duty. It's seldom have they had any training in investigation. I don't say that as a criticism. I've had a lot of training in investigation. One of the recommendations in there is for the CEA director to obtain a certificate, since she's going to be running the planning department. I have a certificate in investigation. Why is that not important when it comes to some body as important as the grand jury? So without criticizing them at all, because I know that they work very hard and very long on this, perhaps that would be something that we need to look at. You folks now have in your possession a document that we don't have. Felt good, didn't it? I could tell. You went on that like a bunch of turkeys in a grape vineyard. That's fine. It's available to us. But you didn't resist it just because we don't have it. And so, you know, the grand jury report is released early, 2 days early, to certain people, including this board. We didn't make that rule up. I wasn't even aware of that rule when I became a board member. So, naturally we did. I have not personally, to my knowledge, completed or participated in any Brown Act violation since I've been on this board, with the exception of one time, between the time I was elected and the first meeting I had. That meeting was called by another board member who knew it was a Brown Act violation, but wanted to make a point anyway. That is the last time I have knowingly participated in anything that can be construed being a Brown Act violation. So I do resent those accusations, especially when they appear in 3, 4, 5 printed media and electronic media as well. I think, like probably most of the people in this room, it's very difficult for me to respond well to threats that are unnecessary. And usually when people make threats, they are idle, usually. And it's because they have nothing better to say. I don't like it when it's personal. You wouldn't either. And I just wish people would refrain from that. I'm looking forward to not only the closed session that we're going to have next week, but the public meeting we're going to have later on this month to air some of this out. And I hope at that time that there will be less emphasis on sarcasm. There's a lot of sarcasm today, folks. I'm pretty good at vetting out what is trying to be said and get it away from sarcasm, but I want to tell you something. It's work. So by then, I hope people's blood pressure has gone down just a little bit, and the rantings of those people who have selfish goals will also calm down a little bit, and we can get to the truth of the matter. I hope the truth of the matter will be more important than personal feelings and sarcasm. The absence of that today is really disappointing.
As for me, I'm going to, I guess, take at least one lesson from this meeting out of Mr. Baker, which is when you suffer extreme sleep deprivation, it's sometimes better to keep your counsel. In my case, I've been up for 36 hours. I wanted to get back to this meeting and hear what people had to say. Plane was delayed by thunder showers, and so I'm not going to articulate my full sense of this issue or these issues, but I will say this: it's very important to me that even though there are many sets of facts, and I read them and I see that there are very different bases for making decisions about where you stand on any number of issues that have been raised today. Sometimes it's good to take a step back, and I say this for myself as well as the people in this room, and take a look at exactly what the underlying issues of the dispute would be, and what are the facts that inform those. Whatever efforts I've made to try to get what facts I know out have not exactly resolved or smoothed things by any means, and I can see that. At the same time, I think it's very important that whatever documents, whatever facts there are, to inform people about where things stand on each of the things that came up today. Which is one reason I asked Mr. Baker to meet with our county council, because I think it's important that he know exactly where his issue is and how we're thinking about it. And I say the same thing about the issues pertaining to county policy, on our economy, questions of growth and development, on questions of due process and how decisions are made, be they political, be they legal, be they strategic, be they personal. It's important that government have a relationship with its citizenry. And although this meeting has a general focus today, we have many meetings with different general focuses, and we have a complex body politic that we try to respond to and we try to listen to carefully. Doesn't make this job any easier, and it certainly doesn't make the decisions before us simple. We have to consider the whole. We need to use our 2 ears well, and I think we've heard your concerns today. We're going to be meeting as discussed in both closed and open session. There will be an open session scheduled for the 22nd of this month, I believe, if that still holds, which will be a public discussion of grand jury response, which is what was scheduled a week ago. Now, if that's changed.
I don't support that, for the reasons I mentioned earlier. I think we did something last week in the heat of the emotion, and if we want to do the due process, grant the grand jury, in fairness to the agency, fairness to this board and the public, I don't know why we're having a meeting on July 22nd. It's not going to give us time to do, as you mentioned, the due process. What are we going to do? Hear the same things that we've heard today, make a decision within 2 weeks on a very significant report. I don't know the purpose of the meeting on July 22nd, unless somewhere somebody knows that we're going to have all the answers to that portion of the lecture, and I don't think we will. So I'm not sure why we're having that public meeting.
Well, as I recall, the reason was so that we could try to get the documents and facts out as quickly as possible, and there was a discussion and it followed that we thought that for the many issues, maybe not all, that came up, there were public records and other records that might be provided for people to consider.
My feeling is let's do a thorough job of the evaluation. If we want to just do that one portion of the grand jury report, then let's do the whole thing. And however it stands, just exactly as it tells us we need to do in the penal code. I don't want to do section 1, 3, 8, 10, whatever. Let's do the whole thing and present the whole thing, not to piecemeal it.
Well, I'd be happy to report the board on the question. I think that it was a response to, as you can see, an extraordinary interest in that particular portion of the grand jury report. I personally have an interest in the Middle Fork E. coli stuff. There's many issues brought up.
I like the animal shelter, so
One of them, yes. So the question is, shall we try to expedite response and getting more information out? Where does it stand in terms of being able to put together a thorough response? There was a desire to do it quicker than 90 days, and obviously there are many members of the board who I would imagine would not want to wait 90 days if we could do it earlier. So why don't I turn to our CAO and see what he thinks as to the state of the gathering of information and response.
There's been no response yet from any of the departments, as I mentioned, in the report or from whom a response is requested. And it's been my experience, these are kind of nested affairs. At first, the departments prepare the response, the county administrator's office prepares the response, and then the board of supervisors prepares its response. So the first stage of this
do justice, I think, as the members of the board indicated, to a comprehensive response.
Can you check with the departments and see what their time frames might be, and certainly try to reflect the desire of the public to have an answer that's both complete and timely?
We can do that.
I don't mind breaking off the community development issues in the remainder of the plan. Sure, you report. The question is, do we want to have all the information by those department heads, whether it's the bureau officers or CDA director, available to the board. There's no sense having a whole lot of people here, not here, or would be sanitary. I think this issue is worthy of having a separate discussion. And I don't know whether you're ready for a separate discussion on this issue or not.
Well, there seems to be two different views of this.
They have, under the penal code, they have 60 days to respond. So are we saying,
The board has 9.
and the board has 9, do we want to respond before we see what the county administrative officer, director,
That's why I asked.
I think there,
I don't
that
think
is,
so.
I don't have a timeline yet from the departments. I can come back and just do it, let you know. What the department is saying is necessary, we can revisit the issue then.
Why don't we let that
May I raise a point of order, Mr. Walensky?
Yes, you may.
I thought your proposal was to release documents, not to draw conclusions and make findings. I just want to clarify what you're going to poll the board on, because if all you're doing is releasing all the documents so everybody can look at the same documents, that's different than asking people to make findings which aren't due for 60 days. Thank you.
Yes, and it was my original hope a week ago that we might be able to accomplish that in a shorter time than our 90 days. What we have had discussion so far has two different views as to whether we should separate this issue out from the rest of the grand jury report, and secondly, how much time it might take to have a thorough and complete response to that, to either of those approaches. I think what we may have consensus on, and I'd like to make sure that my colleagues are in agreement, is that the CAO should review with the departments, get a clear picture of where we are on our ability to respond in as timely and thorough way as possible on either of the approaches, the complete response or the CDA response, and that we use that information to make a decision next week on how we'll move on that. And I'll ask the board whether that's acceptable to them as a way to proceed.
Well, is the issue still? We're going to tell the board about the meeting on the 22nd.
On your recommendation.
Well, there's no change in it for the
But I would ask that we offer them for that particular meeting to have this discussion and have your response.
We can certainly discuss it under, I don't see a barrier, David, correct me if I'm wrong. I have to agree with Maria. I did not expect this today, this is fine, but I don't see, in 2 weeks, this meeting being any different than it is today, if we're ready to have a response to the grand jury report in its entirety. I don't quite understand.
Okay, what I'm polling on is the question of whether we would ask our CAO to check with departments and give us a sense of the time necessary to make either the comprehensive response or the department-specific response, how long it will take to do. We know what the legal deadlines are. We want to know whether we can beat those deadlines, whether we can get this out in a timely way that doesn't hemorrhage over the next 93 months.
I have to say that for me, it's adequate to go with the timelines with the encouragement from our CAO to beat that timeline. But I would be reluctant to set dates for people that are unattainable. Perhaps we can do it much quicker, and I hope we can. But the law says 60 days for most and 90 days for this board of supervisors. I don't expect it to take that long.
since we were criticized for acting too quickly, I think it would be prudent to take as long as it takes. So I'm not.
It's not a year, it's 60 days and 90 days. If you've been paying attention, you would know that. That's what I mean about the sarcasm.
Okay, I'm gonna again ask the board, let's see if we can reach some conclusion about just the next step. One suggestion is that we simply let nature take its course within legal deadlines. Another suggestion is that we ask the CAO to check into the departments and see what a feasible earliest date that we can achieve a full response to either the entire grand jury report or the department-specific one that has been so commented upon today, and that we would not make a decision about how we proceed until hearing the answer for that. So those would seem to be the two directions I'd ask if it appears that we have. Is that a third for nature taking its course?
I am not anxious to do this on the 22nd as we had talked about.
Okay, wait a minute. That's not on the table right now. There's two choices that I'm suggesting we try to give some direction to. Would be number one, to deal with it within legal framework and the deadlines that reference as 60 and 90 days.
That's fine.
The second would be that we not make a decision about the timing of our response until hearing from the CAO after its discussion with the affected department heads.
I don't see a conflict with it myself, Steve. The 60 and 90 days are set in law. I will agree that we should encourage the CAO, the department head, and this board to come back with a response sooner. I have no problem with that whatsoever. That would be a very good thing. The 60 and 90 days is simply a limit now this time. I'm not sure I understand the second option here. We're trying to put a date sooner. We can just give direction to the CAO to encourage a quick response that is set in law. And I would support that.
My own feeling is, I look forward to the CAO giving us his timelines after consultation with those that need to provide the information. I think it needs to be as complete and thorough as possible and timely as possible. Now, having said that, I also think when we do have a discussion of the grand jury report, that the issues before us, the community development agency should not be lumped in with all the others, because we're going to talk endlessly about some of the others, and I think it's only fair to the citizens to allow them to comment on their opinion on that particular issue.
I have a question for council. Under the penal code, it says our response goes to the grand jury. It does not go to the public, but that we can ask the grand jury to release our response sooner than what is required, because we can do ours, but we also have the response of the other three departments that have been requested. So at what point in the process do we discuss it openly? At what point is it, or that we give our response to the grand jury along with the CAO, Human Resources, Community Development, and then they release the report? So, I mean, it doesn't have, you don't have to answer now, but I read the penal code, and that's how it was. It was not a discussion on an ordinance on whether we're going to include something or exclude something. So I think if we could have an answer on that next week, that might help us. I mean, that's a down the road issue from the timing.
So is it acceptable for the board to hear next week on both those issues from CAO and county council?
Yes.
Everybody okay? All right.
And there will be no meeting on the 22nd.
That's correct. There will be no meeting on the 22nd as previously
Thank you.
There will be a regularly scheduled for a supervised meeting.
I don't know.
I just want to be clear.
The subject that we put on
Let's cancel it too.
the subject that we put on the agenda, or that we requested be put on the agenda on the 22nd, has been withdrawn by this discussion, and we have substituted a report from you and County Council on timelines, requirements, and feasibility of timely response.
One final comment, please.
Actually, I had not completed mine. I had one sentence left before Maria had objected to the 22nd, and I'll finish that one sentence and then I'll do the rest. I wanted to add my voice to that of Supervisor Calvino. There's plenty of room in this county to disagree about policy, strategy, even what the facts of the situation are. But we're a lot better off when we resort to careful and considerate exchanges. And I do believe that there were parts of this meeting that managed to exceed that. My hope is that we can keep it within some boundaries. This is a great county. We all are going to wind up at the same grocery stores and the same landfills and the same places that we all meet up. We're going to make hard decisions here, and we have been for a number of years, actually. We take your voices seriously, but let's try to make sure that we keep listening to one another, even when we disagree in this profound way. But I do thank you for being here today.
Okay, just really quickly, Jeff Davidson was the first speaker here, and he used a phrase that was particularly stinging to me, that he kind of looked at us and said that this board has a reputation of being fostering an anti-business climate. I would just like to say that I represent what I think is unmistakably the fastest growing district in this county, District 5, and I come from a lifetime of construction and development, and I just want to go on record as saying, if you have any misconceptions about my motivation in this county, I'm not an anti-growth person. I'm a very pro-growth person, pro-development. And I think that my actions have consistently reflected that. So please don't go away from here thinking that the supervisor from the 5th District has an anti-business climate mentality. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now take a 5-minute recess until, actually a 7-minute recess until 11 o'clock, and we'll move to the next agenda item at that time.